right, we're here at the end of another year, and I'm here to share with you once again some neat games that I played this year. And I think as I was playing games this year, I realized that I was developing an overarching theme for what I was in the mood for in terms of games this year. And by and large, that theme meant smaller rather than bigger, with one notable exception. But let's go ahead and get started. You'll note I've got a little, there it is. I got a little thing over there. I decided to play around with Streamlabs a little bit and put the box art for these games up on the screen when I was talking about them. I don't know. I still like to play around sometimes, even though I'm retired. That's what you do when you're retired. You play around. Anyway, first game on my list is actually, I technically played it last year, and then I felt bad about not putting it on my list, and so I replayed it this year because it only takes an hour. Super Kiwi 64 is basically about an hour of a new Banjo-Kazooie. Not a new Banjo-Tooie, not a new ukulele. Just a really nice, densely packed hour-long N64 platformer with a little bit of that one bird from Mario Odyssey that you slam into walls. Um, that's Super Kiwi 64. It's got its own Easter eggs. It feels great to control. The music's not bad. It's got some deep lore. Uh, and you can buy it for $3, play it, and be done in time for bed on a school night. And that, I think, is just fantastic. Really, more games should be an hour long, is what I think, honestly. Speaking of games, not an hour long, but short, I think 3 or 4 hours, is Alba, a Wildlife Adventure. I happened upon this because the level designer, who I think has also done work on like Dishonored 2 or one of the Dishonored games, um, has a YouTube channel, and he talked about making this game, and it's really cool. It's really neat. It's you're a little girl on a kind of, I don't know if it's tropical or just warm kind of Spanish island. I believe it is Spain. Uh, and she has a little wildlife app. And you take a picture of an animal, and it gets added to your wildlife collection. It is not a photography game. That is one thing that uh, took me off guard. Does not keep your photos. Photos are just the way that you add something to your logbook. Um, but it's got this really nice, dense open world with something like 64 different species of animals to track down, and uh, some not super complicated, but complicated enough wildlife behavior that you have to think about how you are going to get a photo of certain animals. Um, and it's got a little story. It's has this thing where you confirm yes or no by shaking the main character's head using the control stick, and it's cute, and they use it in a really clever way at the end of the game. um, and it's kind of it's a classic 90s style little kids saving nature from the big corporation, and it's not trying to be anything more than that. And I think that the next Pokemon game should be more like this. It's really charming and really fun, and again, like 3 4 hours. Play it on a Saturday afternoon. Um, Future Redeemed. So I was kind of hard on Xenoblade 3 last year, and I really liked Xenoblade 3. I want to be clear about that. It doesn't. I think it hits some really high highs and then has some kind of low lows. Future Redeemed really crystallizes what I admire about Monolith as a studio, and I'm going to say some bold, controversial things here. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is what if Dark Souls 3 was good? because both of these games, with their DLC packages, are conversations about ending a trilogy and a company's relationship with its own massively popular work that it became known for. And Dark Souls 3 is a cry for help, whereas Xenoblade 3 is a celebration that stands on its own for the most part, and then has this little DLC epilogue that is kind of a home run tour. And I'm really excited to see what they do next. They're not afraid to mess with stuff and try new things, and that is what's really exciting about Monolith as a company. I don't know what they're going to do next. Um, the game's fine, you know. I think I admire it narratively most of all. Playing the game is fun. It doesn't iterate too much upon the gameplay of Xenoblade 3 and still uh, spend 50% of the game in chain attacks, which is unfortunate. But it's good. It's good. Check it out. It's fun. Um, Baldur's Gate 3 Act 1. I did not play Act 2 or Act 3 because this is a really long game. You know this. If you've played this game, if you've existed on the internet, you know this is the case. Um, but Act 1, those 30-ish hours that I spent in Act 1, truly, truly remarkable. What you can do with a really dense space with a lot of different modes of interaction that you can approach in a million different ways. I could tell the story of my character and how she had a life changing revelation because of the one, uh, like, the guy with the whip in the goblin camp, and how that genuinely changed the trajectory of her character in a really interesting way. Your story is going to be completely different, and I have not, and this is about the games that I've played, I haven't played games with that level of player control over character expression. Haven't really played the Mass Effects. I played a little bit of Dragon Age Origins over 10 years ago. Uh, and so this is the first sort of this RPG that I've put a lot of time into. And apparently, even by the standards of people who have played a lot of these games, this is a really remarkable one. And so, really, I especially because I wrapped up running a 5-year 5e campaign this year, and then played Baldur's Gate 3, and I was like, cool, this is putting into practice in a really beautiful way a lot of the scenario design principles that I want to aspire to in my next dungeon mastering project. I hear that Act 1 is the most polished of the three acts, but I also see these massive patches being laid out every once in a while. So maybe by the time I pick it up and play Act 2 and Act 3, it'll be even better. You don't need me to sing this game's praises. You've heard it from probably every person whose opinion you've listened to. Uh, but it's a good game. It's a great game. A fantastic game. Karlak, it makes me feel things. Um, okay, time for the Trails wrap up. I played 3 Trails or Kiseki games this year. The first, Trails to Azure, the second game in the Crossbell duology, and the game that links, kind of closes the gap, right? So I started with Cold Steel, jumped back to Sky, and progressed chronologically from there, and this is the last game in that gap. Um, and while I don't love it as much as Trails from Zero, its predecessor, I think it is still really, really good. And again, something that I look at and want to model my dungeon mastering work after, because it is the story of a city and its suburbs, and really densely concentrated. You get to know the cast, you get relationship with the cast. Uh, the downside is Trails from Zero was a zero to hero story, and Trails to Azure, you're already the hero, so it just doesn't have that same sense of progression. But Really, really, I think maintaining that standard of quality. The crossbow duology, definitely my favorite arc in the series so far. And then I move on to Cold Steel 2, which is the sequel to Cold Steel, and kind of my first step forward in time in the series since I began it. Um, and it's fine. It's solid. It's got some pacing issues. It's got like it ends and then there's 10 hours of plot critical gameplay after the credits. It's a little wild in that regard. Um, but I think what it really worked for me on a narrative level is that Cold Steel is this school setting game. And in the first Cold Steel, you are this group of different people from different walks of life, as you often are in a Trails game. But you are very specifically being like set up as you are the future of this country, and you need to be able to work beyond the barriers that have led us to the current political situation. And Cold Steel 2 is where that group of kids gets onto the political stage in a real, tangible way and expresses that philosophy uh, in in practice rather than just theory. And if the first game was like, all right, everybody go on a field trip and learn something about the country at this location, and it feels very, spoon fed, and it's because it's a school. Um, this is okay, you're on your own. Go back to those same locations, but you're figuring things out for yourself. And it's not actually that. It's an extremely linear guided experience, but narratively, it feels like that's what the characters are doing. They're, uh, you know, coming into their own into adulthood in this game, and I like that a lot. Cold Steel 3 sucks shit. It's so bad. This is a positive video about games that I like. Cold Steel 3 sucks shit. Part of it is where I was at in my own life at the time, but I think it's also just collapsing under its own weight as a franchise, as a formula. It's just truly, uh, it was a really, really disappointing experience for me. Um, I have the next two games already. They're on the shelf right there. I'm going to continue with this franchise, but boy, howdy, was this a freaking buzzkill. I can imagine so many better versions of this game. Um, Whatever. I hate to end this video on a negative note, but just some things that I played. I finally finished Bloodborne this year. Let's go to the question mark. I finally finished Bloodborne this year. I previously had played almost all of it, and then I stopped at the fishing hamlet and the DLC. Not because I gave up, but because I lost interest and was kind of burned out on the Chalice dungeons. Uh, Finished Bloodborne, did the DLC, solid ass game. Uh, Also replayed a lot of Sekiro, didn't finish it, kind of got what I wanted out of it, but also solid game that I think is better on a replay once you've gotten over its kind of steep difficulty curve. Um, I revisited Crystal Chronicles a little bit. I love the atmosphere of that game. The music is so good. It's been kind of my playlist as I've been doing D&D prep. Um, Murder of the Sonic the Hedgehog, great little package. No notes. Um, Metroid Prime Remastered, still a great game. Uh, Really excited to play a different Prime game that isn't just a remake of Super Metroid, because I've played Prime 1 enough. Um, and I think that's it. I think that's all the games I want to talk about. If there's one game that is missing from this list that you're wondering about, um, I kind of wasn't wild about it, unfortunately. And you know the game I'm talking about. Uh, anyway, have a great 2024, everybody. I think I've been I don't know, I had some manic energy in this recording, but whatever. Let's roll with it. Let's go into 2024 with a bang. Uh, Have fun, be good to yourself, and I'll see you next year.